It's just a quick shopping trip, Linda said, waving dismissively as she grabbed her designer purse from the passenger seat. The kids are sleeping anyway, and I'll only be 20 minutes tops. I watched through the rearview mirror as my twin toddlers, Emma and Nathan, napped peacefully in their car seats, completely unaware of their grandmother's casual disregard for their safety. My name is Madison Cooper, and at 32, I never imagined I'd be standing in a mall parking lot, arguing with my mother-in-law about basic childcare. The July heat was already intense at 11 a.m., and despite the covered parking spot, I could feel sweat beading on my forehead. Linda, you can't leave them in the car, I said firmly, reaching for the back door. I'll wake them up and take them with me to my appointment. We can reschedule your shopping trip. She rolled her eyes the same way she'd been doing since I married her precious son James 5 years ago. Don't be dramatic, Madison. The car's in the shade, and the windows are cracked. Besides, moving them now will just ruin their nap schedule. You're always going on about their precious schedule. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. It was the dental office confirming I was on my way. I was already running late for my root canal, a procedure I'd been putting off for weeks. Linda had insisted she could watch the kids, and James had assured me his mother was more than capable. Look, Linda continued, adjusting her expensive silk blouse. I raised James just fine, and he survived. You modern mothers are so overprotective. It's suffocating. I hesitated, my hand still on the car door. The dentist had been clear. They'd have to reschedule it if I was late, and the pain in my tooth was becoming unbearable. Linda had watched the twins before, though never for more than an hour and always at our house. 20 minutes? I confirmed, hating myself for even considering it. Maximum, she promised, already turning toward the mall entrance. I just need to pick up a few things. The sales associate is holding them for me. I should have known better. I should have trusted my instincts, but between the throbbing pain in my jaw and Linda's dismissive confidence, I made a decision that would haunt me forever. I'll be done in about 2 hours, I called after her. Call me if they wake up, and I'll have James come get them. She waved without turning around, her heels clicking against the pavement as she disappeared through the glass doors. 2 hours later, I emerged from the dentist's office, my mouth numb and my mind foggy from the procedure. I had 6 missed calls, none from Linda. Instead, they were all from an unknown number. As I listened to the first voicemail, my blood ran cold. Mrs. Cooper, this is Officer Martinez with the local PD. We need you to come to the Oakbrook Mall immediately regarding your children. I've never driven so fast in my life. The entire way there, my mind raced with horrible possibilities. Why hadn't Linda called? Where were my babies? The July heat had only intensified, and even with the windows cracked. When I arrived, there were 2 police cars and an ambulance in the parking lot. My legs nearly gave out when I saw them. But then I heard a familiar cry. Emma's cry. They were alive. Officer Martinez met me before I could reach the ambulance. Your children are okay, he said quickly, clearly recognizing the panic on my face. Overheated and distressed, but okay. The paramedics are checking them now. How? I started, but he was already leading me toward a security officer holding a tablet. We need you to see this footage, Officer Martinez said grimly. Your mother-in-law left the children in the car at 11:15 a.m. Security cameras show her entering multiple stores, trying on clothes, having lunch at the cafe. I watched in horror as the timestamp on the footage kept advancing. Linda, browsing leisurely through racks of clothes. Linda, sipping wine at the cafe. Linda, getting a manicure at the nail salon. All while my babies were locked in a hot car. A parking attendant noticed the children at 1:45 p.m. Officer Martinez continued. They were crying and clearly in distress. The temperature inside the car had reached dangerous levels, even with the windows cracked. Where is she? I demanded, my voice shaking with rage. Where is Linda? Still getting her nails done when we found her, the security officer said, his disgust evident. She seemed genuinely surprised we were making such a big deal about it. That's when I saw her, being escorted out of the mall by another officer. Her fresh manicure gleaming, shopping bags in hand, looking more annoyed than concerned. Our eyes met, and she had the audacity to look offended. Madison, she called out, tell them they're overreacting. The children are fine. I checked on them, eventually. I turned away from her, rushing toward the ambulance where a paramedic was holding Nathan. Emma was sitting on the bumper, drinking water, her face red and tear-stained. When they saw me, they both started crying again, reaching for me with desperate arms. As I held them close, breathing in their overheated but alive scent, I heard Linda's voice behind me. "This is ridiculous." I raised James, and he turned out just fine. I turned to face her, my voice deadly calm despite the rage coursing through me. "Officer Martinez," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I want to press charges." The look of shock on Linda's face would have been satisfying if I wasn't so focused on my children. As the officer began reading her rights, I heard her protest growing more hysterical. "You can't be serious. We're family. James will never allow this." But I wasn't listening anymore. I was focused on my babies, on their rapid heartbeats slowly steadying against my chest, on the miracle that someone had found them in time. Linda had no idea what was coming, but she was about to learn that some lines you can't uncross. And this was just the beginning. "You're being ridiculous, Madison," James shouted, pacing our living room later that night. "She's my mother. You can't seriously be pressing charges." I sat on the couch, watching my twins finally sleep peacefully in their playpen beside me. The pediatrician had cleared them but advised monitoring them closely for the next 24 hours. Every time I looked at them, I remembered the paramedic's words. 20 more minutes in that car. "Your mother left our children to die so she could go shopping," I said, keeping my voice low to avoid waking them. "She didn't check on them for almost 3 hours, James. 3 hours in a hot car. She made a mistake." He ran his hands through his hair, frustration evident on his face. "But she's family. We don't press charges against family." "A mistake?" I stood up, anger finally breaking through my calm exterior. "A mistake is forgetting to buy milk. A mistake is being 10 minutes late. She abandoned our babies in a hot car to get a manicure." James's phone buzzed again, probably his sister Vanessa, who'd been calling nonstop since Linda was released on bail. The family had closed ranks around her immediately, painting me as the villain who was tearing the family apart. The police showed me the security footage. I continued pulling out my phone. "Want to see your mother browsing designer handbags while our children could have been dying? Or maybe the footage of her having wine at lunch. She even posted selfies from the nail salon." James looked away, but I pressed on. The parking attendant said they were soaked with sweat, screaming. Emma was trying to climb out of her car seat. Nathan had vomited. "Do you understand how close we came to losing them?" "Mom's devastated," James said weakly. "She's been crying all evening. She said she lost track of time." "Lost track of time?" I laughed bitterly. "She told the police they were overreacting." "She didn't even apologize, James. She was more worried about her interrupted manicure than our children." My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Kate, a lawyer who'd been helping me navigate the legal aspects of the situation. "The prosecutor wants to meet tomorrow morning," I told him. "They're taking this very seriously. Child endangerment, criminal negligence." "If you do this," James said, his voice hard, "if you send my mother to jail, I'll never forgive you." I looked at him for a long moment, this man I'd loved for 7 years, who was now choosing his mother's comfort over his children's safety. "If I don't do this," I replied quietly, "I'll never forgive myself." The next few days were a blur of police statements, meetings with prosecutors, and endless calls from James's family. Linda had already started spinning her version of events, claiming she checked on the kids regularly and that I was exaggerating the situation to hurt her. But the security footage didn't lie. Neither did the temperature readings from inside the car or the medical reports from the paramedics. The prosecutor, a mother herself, was particularly interested in Linda's social media posts from that day. Cheerful selfies with captions about treating herself, while my children were suffering in her car. "This case is pretty straightforward," Kate told me over coffee, reviewing the documentation. "The evidence is overwhelming, and her lack of remorse makes it worse. She's likely looking at serious charges." "James is barely speaking to me," I admitted, stirring my untouched coffee. "His whole family thinks I'm a monster for not dropping the charges." Kate reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You're protecting your children. If James can't understand that, maybe he needs to reevaluate his priorities." That evening, I arrived home to find Linda sitting in my living room. James stood by the fireplace, arms crossed. "We need to talk," he said. "No," I replied, my voice firm. "She's not supposed to be here. The bail conditions." "Madison, please," Linda interrupted, her eyes red from crying. I'm sorry, okay. I made a terrible mistake, but surely we can handle this as a family. Think about what this will do to James, to everyone. Think about family? I felt eerily calm as I pulled out my phone. Like you thought about family while you were shopping, while you were getting your nails done. I'll pay for therapy, she offered desperately. I'll take parenting classes, whatever you want. Just drop the charges. I looked at James, seeing the hope in his eyes, his desperate desire to sweep this under the rug like every other time his mother had crossed the line. But all I could see were my babies in that hot car, scared and alone, while their grandmother sipped wine and tried on clothes. Officer Martinez, I said into my phone, Linda Cooper is at my house, in violation of her bail conditions. Madison, no. James moved toward me, but I stepped back. You have 30 seconds to leave, I told Linda, or you'll be arrested again. And James, if you ever let her near our children again, you'll be hearing from my lawyer. I watched them leave, Linda's tears turning to anger as she realized her manipulation had failed. James wouldn't look at me as he followed her out. But for the first time since this nightmare began, I knew without a doubt that I was doing the right thing. My children's safety was more important than family loyalty, and if James couldn't understand that, well, I had some decisions to make about our future too. The courthouse was packed the morning of Linda's hearing. James's entire family had shown up to support her, shooting me dirty looks as I walked in with Kate by my side. James sat with them, avoiding my eyes. 3 months had passed since that day at the mall. James and I were separated now, his choice, after I refused to drop the charges. He'd moved in with his sister Vanessa, claiming he needed space to think. That space apparently included dating his high school sweetheart, according to his recent social media posts. All rise, the bailiff called as Judge Peterson entered the courtroom. I sat up straight, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. Linda stood at the defendant's table, dressed conservatively in a navy suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. She'd spent the past months playing the role of the devastated grandmother, giving tearful interviews to anyone who would listen about how I was destroying her family. But the prosecution had been thorough. They played the security footage, showing Linda's casual disregard for my children's safety. They presented the medical reports, the temperature readings from the car, and the social media posts that showed her complete lack of concern while my children were suffering. The parking attendant testified about finding Emma and Nathan, describing their distressed state in detail. The little girl was crying for her mommy, he said, his voice thick with emotion. The boy had thrown up all over himself. They were both red-faced and drenched in sweat. When it was Linda's turn to speak, she tried her usual tactics. I made a terrible mistake, she said, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. I love my grandchildren. I would never intentionally harm them. I just lost track of time. Lost track of time? The prosecutor interrupted, holding up her phone. Is that why you posted this selfie from the nail salon, Mrs. Cooper? Treating myself to some me time, just what the doctor ordered. That was 2 hours into your shopping spree while your grandchildren were trapped in a hot car. I watched Linda's face change as the prosecutor methodically dismantled her excuses. The security footage showed her walking past her car multiple times without checking on the children. Her credit card statements proved she'd visited 8 different stores. The nail salon receptionist testified that Linda had added a paraffin treatment to her manicure because she had plenty of time. Finally, Judge Peterson delivered her verdict. Mrs. Cooper, your actions show a disturbing lack of regard for the safety of your grandchildren. This wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. It was a prolonged series of choices that put 2 young lives at risk. Linda was sentenced to 18 months in prison, with an additional 3 years of probation. She would never be allowed unsupervised contact with my children again. As the bailiff led her away, she turned to glare at me. I hope you're happy, she spat. You've ruined everything. I stayed seated as the courtroom emptied, letting her words wash over me. James approached, looking uncertain. Madison, he started, but I cut him off. I filed for divorce this morning, I said quietly. Kate has the papers. He stepped back, shock crossing his face. What? Why now? Because I watched you sit there, I replied, standing to face him. I watched you support your mother after what she did to our children. And I realized something. This isn't about her anymore. It's about what you're teaching our kids about love and safety and family. I love our children, he protested weakly. But you love your mother's approval more, I said. And I won't let Emma and Nathan grow up thinking that's what love looks like. Later that evening, I sat on my back porch, watching the twins play in their kiddie pool. They'd recovered from their ordeal, though Emma still had nightmares sometimes. Nathan was more clingy than before, needing constant reassurance that I wouldn't leave him. Kate joined me, handing me a glass of wine. "You did the right thing," she said, seeing my expression. "Both with Linda and with James." "I know," I replied, smiling as Emma splashed her brother, their giggles filling the air. "It's just not how I imagined things would turn out." My phone buzzed. A text from Vanessa, probably another angry tirade about family loyalty. I deleted it without reading it. The family had made their choice, rallying around Linda even after her conviction. But I'd made my choice too, and I wouldn't apologize for protecting my children. 6 months later, I received a letter from Linda's prison counselor. Linda had written a formal apology, acknowledging the full extent of her actions and their potential consequences. The counselor thought it might help with healing and closure. I filed the letter away without responding. Maybe someday, when the kids were older, I'd tell them about their grandmother, about that day at the mall, about why we don't see that side of the family anymore. But for now, we were building our own kind of family, one based on love, respect, and the understanding that real family protects each other, no matter what. Emma climbed into my lap, her hair still damp from the pool. "Love you, Mommy," she said, snuggling close. "Love you too, baby," I replied, holding her tight. "Always and forever." And in that moment, I knew without a doubt that every hard decision, every painful consequence had been worth it, because my children were safe, and that was all that mattered.